Hey guys, it's Chris at Highline Guitars. You're watching another one of my YouTube guitar building videos. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I hope that by the end of the video, I'll have earned the honor and privilege of your subscription. In today's video, I want to talk about the reasons why I am not a big fan of the Tune-O-Matic guitar bridge. There's basically two reasons for this. And I'm not going to present these in any particular order because they're both equal in my eyes. The first reason I don't like them is the width of the bridge. They are simply too narrow. And that can pose problems when it comes to trying to intonate the strings, especially the bass side strings, your low E, A, and D strings. This is especially true with the low E. That can be an issue to get it to intonate correctly. There's just not enough aft adjustability of the bridge because it's so narrow. Now, Gibson was aware of this early on when they introduced the bridge, and to rectify that situation, what they started doing was when they would mount the bridge, rather than mounting it perpendicular to the center line, they would actually mount it at an angle. So the treble side post is near the scale line, but then the bass side post is pushed back about 1/8 of an inch closer to the back. So the bridge is at an angle. This would give the necessary range of adjustability for those bass side strings to intonate. But I've found over the years that sometimes that doesn't help at all, or it doesn't help enough. And you've probably seen guitars that have Tune-O-Matics where they've actually flipped around the bass side saddles, and that gives them just a tiny bit more range to intonate the strings. Still not an ideal solution, but it does work. So when you see bridges like that, that's the reason they're doing it. They're trying to get a little bit of extra aft adjustability to intonate the strings. And there have been situations where when I've built guitars with Tune-O-Matics, even though I've got the bridge at the correct angle and I've flipped my saddles around, I still can't get it to intonate correctly. And what I've had to do is either change string gauges or change different brands of strings, and keep doing this until I find strings that I can actually intonate. And that doesn't always work if you're building a guitar that you're going to sell to somebody else, because they may have certain brand and gauge of strings that they want to use. And if it's not going to work, if you're not going to be able to intonate it, you're kind of screwed. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, to understand this fully, you really have to understand the whole history of the Tune-O-Matic bridge. And I'm not really going to get into that in this video. However, I am going to make another version of this video, which will be available to my members, and that's going to go into the history of the Tune-O-Matic bridge. It's just a little bit of extra information about how it was designed and why it was designed this way, and some of the things that were done to try to rectify it. But like I said, that video will be available to members. So if you want that kind of information, you can click the join button down below and select either one of the tiers and become a member, and then you'll have access to those videos where I explain guitar building in much more detail. Now, the other reason why I don't like the Tune-O-Matic bridge is string height. Even when the bridge is in its lowest position, where you've lowered it all the way down to the top surface of the body, the strings can be too high off of the frets. So you end up with really high action. And the only way to rectify that is to angle the neck. Because if you lower the nut below the body and relative to the bridge, you bring the strings down closer to the frets. Now, ideally, when the bridge is in its lowest position, all the way down to the top of the body, you want the strings to just be kissing the top of either the 12th or the 17th fret, depending on how you measure your string action. But from there, you can then raise the bridge slightly to increase the string action, to lift them off the frets and give you that string height that you desire. But the reason for that is because the Tune-O-Matic bridge is so high. When you measure it from the notch where the string sits, the bottom of that notch, to the top of the body when the bridge is in the lowest position, it's about 1/2 an inch. Now you compare that to like a Fender Stratocaster style or Telecaster style hardtail. Those bridges, when they're in the lowest position, are about 3/8 of an inch off the body. So you can keep your neck flat when you install one of those bridges. And that has its own advantages. When the neck is flat, it's easier to make one of those type of guitars. And you can keep the neck and the top of the frets and the fretboard closer to the body. It doesn't have to stick up so high to get the proper string action. But with the Tune-O-Matic, you have to angle the neck, and that means you've got to calculate what that neck angle is going to be. And you can do the math, but that's not always a guarantee, because the process of actually routing and carving and sanding the wood can change that angle ever so slightly. And all you have to do is raise or lower that nut a 1/64 of an inch, and that can throw things off to where you can't achieve the action that you're trying to shoot for. So it gets very complicated trying to get the correct neck angle. Now, if you're building just one guitar for yourself, that can be a real chore, because if you don't get that angle right, you've got a piece of firewood. Now, if you're a small business and you're building guitars and you're planning to make a model that's going to have an angled neck, and you plan to build a lot of them, or at least more than, say, 5 or 6 of them, you can make a prototype and then check the angle. And in fact, you can make as many prototypes as you need to in order to get the angle exactly right. And then once you get that angle exactly right, then you can repeat that in every guitar that you build, so it becomes a little bit easier. But regardless, making an angled neck, it involves many more steps to making the guitar than it does to make a guitar with a flat neck. So you have to keep that in mind. And if you're building one guitar and you're doing it for the first time, making that angled neck might be a little bit more than you're willing to bite off. So you want to just consider a different type of bridge. There is a different style of bridge that is basically in the same vein as a Tune-O-Matic. It's called the Schaller harmonica bridge. And Schaller actually introduced those bridges in the early 70s, and Gibson started selling a lot of the guitars with that bridge. And it has much greater range of adjustability. And that allows you to install it so that it's perpendicular to the body. You don't have to worry about angling it in order to ensure that you're going to be able to intonate the strings. But the string height is still pretty high on those, so you're going to have an angled neck. Now, I know some of you watching this will think, well, why don't you just recess the bridge into the body? Well, you can do that, certainly. But again, anytime you do work like that, you're adding steps to the process. Adding steps to the process increases the amount of time it takes to do it. And if you're building guitars to sell them, that increases the cost. More time means more money. More money means the guitar is going to have to be more expensive to recoup what you've invested into it. So recessing the bridge or angling the neck, those all involve additional steps. And that increases the cost of the guitar. And that's probably one of the reasons why a Les Paul is so expensive. It's because of the amount of work that has to go into it to make it properly. So I hope that you find this video to be useful. The whole purpose of it was to give you information that would help you make a decision about how you want to design the guitar that you plan to build for yourself. And maybe that Les Paul knockoff that you're dreaming of building might be a little bit outside of your wheelhouse. At any rate, you might want to reconsider the bridge you're going to use and design a guitar that's going to be a little bit easier to build. And if you're willing to take the challenge, by all means, go for it. But just be aware that things could go wrong very easily, and you would end up with a guitar that's not going to work. So again, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If so, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you want to help support my channel, you can visit eguitarplans.com or my Highline Guitars merch store. There's links in the description below. And any purchase you make there is going to help support this channel so I can keep building guitars and making videos and sharing with you my experience building guitars. And as I said before, you can also click the join button, become a member, and you're going to have access to videos that contain a lot more detail about guitar building than videos like this one. So I would encourage you to consider that. And if you want to help support the channel but want to just do it as simply as possible, you can click the thanks button and leave a tip in the amount that you think is fair. And also, if you've got a question about building guitars, you can include a question with your tip, and I promise I'll answer it. So as always, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and take care, stay safe, and I hope you'll be back for more guitar building videos.